Hi, my name is Tom Ollerton and this is the Shiny New Object podcast. This is a podcast about marketing technology, and every week I interview someone interesting, infamous, famous, exciting, connected, or just downright lovely. And this week is no exception. I am interviewing Lauren Spearman, the digital manager at Benefit Cosmetics UK. And before we meet Lauren, I need to do a little announcement, a note from our sponsors. I am going to be speaking at an event in New York called Data Driven Creative on the 7th of November. I'm going to be talking about my favourite subject, which is creativity, ads and AI. So come to that if you live in New York or not. I don't know, do you say that kind of thing? Anyway, it's out there now. So I'm really excited to have Lauren on the podcast because we've worked together and we're friends. She actually lives down the road. And a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Adam Boyter, who's the head of marketing at Pernod Ricard, who also lives down the road. So, you know,
keeping it local.
Yeah, I'm going to try and interview all the marketing people on here as possible. So, for those listeners who don't follow you on Instagram and don't know who you are, can you tell everyone who you are and what you do and how you ended up here?
Yep. So I'm digital manager at Benefit Cosmetics, which for anyone that doesn't know Benefit, we are the UK's number one premium makeup brand. Digital manager is pretty vague, but I cover most aspects of digital marketing in some capacity in my role, but my main focuses are advertising and influencers. Dabble in a little bit of content every now and then, but my strengths are probably advertising, and then I'm big on the whole influencer thing at the moment.
And your shiny new object in half an hour or so is going to be influencers. I'm going to really push you on influencers because, as you know, it's not really my specialism at all. So there's loads of things I want to know about.
And obviously, influencer marketing isn't this necessarily a brand new thing, but I feel like it's evolving a lot, especially this year. So I think that's probably something we can touch on when we come to it.
Yes, keep your powder dry on that. Okay, cool. So first off, we're going to get to know you. The more I do that, the more Alan Porridge it sounds. I know.
I'm putting on my phone voice.
So, easy question.
Yeah.
What is the marketing book that you recommend most often?
Now, strictly speaking, this is a bit of a cheating answer because it's not a marketing book. But I recently read Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, who's the founder of Nike. And it's kind of his story, I guess, of how he founded Nike. And it doesn't actually take it right through to the modern day as such, like he touches on it at the end. But it's his kind of, I'll be honest, I knew nothing about how the business was started. And he was a really keen runner, and then he got really interested in making shoes that helped athletes improve their performance. And then Nike kind of came around from that. But I think the biggest thing I took out of it was the thing that got him through and to where he is was his passion. And it's so throughout the whole book, you can just tell it's because he was so passionate about something, that's where his success was. And he's really humble, and that kind of side of it is really kind. But for me, what stood out was if you've got passion in something, that's going to really show. And I think that's not necessarily specific to marketing, but that definitely makes a difference in terms of if you're trying to sell something.
And how did you end up reading that book? Was that a recommendation?
Yeah, one of my friends recommended it. I've had it in the notes on my phone for about a year, and then for some reason it came to my head, and I was like, right, I'm going away. I'm going to get it on Amazon.
Because my rule of thumb is I won't read a book unless 3 people independently recommend it to me.
Oh, really?
I was just thinking, if 3 people just random whatever stuff.
How much do you read?
Well, I don't I can't. I read very slowly but listen very quickly, so I do Audible and stuff.
Ah, okay.
I'm reading the Hard Thing About Hard Things at the minute.
What's that?
It's about hard things. It's just an investor guy. He was involved. I think he's founded Netscape. The first.
Old school.
That's really good. And just for listeners who obviously can't see Lauren, she's wearing a black jumper that only says Nike on it, so we can assume that.
I don't think I'll ever buy Adidas again.
Cool. Okay, so what is the most useful thing you've bought with your own money that is useful for work?
Bit of an odd one. This a pair of red tights
What?
So, and the reason being, it got me my first media job. So I wore a pair of red tights, like not even like sexy red, they were just like disgustingly pantomime red tights to an interview. So my first kind of media job was working at Sky, selling TV sponsorship, and they said that they remembered I stood out of everyone because I wore the red tights.
Really?
So I feel like that's a good investment on my money because it started off my career.
So why did they bring that up? That's really weird.
Because it was something memorable about me. Not my amazing interview, clearly.
How many people did they interview? Like thousands?
I was one of 3.
Okay. This is a weird question. If you had a digital media budget of 10 million quid to get any message out there, what would it be?
It's not necessarily brand message, but my message would be like, try yin yoga because it's amazing for your head.
Are you kidding me?
I feel
the first
like
yoga recommendation.
Well, you know, like at the moment, there's like anxiety and depression is like a really hot topic, and it's almost become like a buzzword to have anxiety or be anxious. And I discovered yin yoga a few months ago, and I am obsessed with it.
What is it for people who have no idea?
So yin yoga is it's floor-based yoga. So for anyone really lazy, it's perfect because you basically just lie there and stretch for an hour. But it's meant to kind of stretch all the connective tissue around your muscles and do something good for your body. But I don't know what it does, but it's amazing for your mind, because I think we're all in this society where it's like it's almost a good thing to be like, I'm so busy and I've not got time. Whereas to take an hour for yourself to just totally calm your mind and not think of stuff and not because I think we're all guilty of like constantly having stuff on our mind and overthinking, and I feel like it's just such an amazing use of time to invest in yourself. And
how has that impacted your work?
It's made I am so much calmer at work because I'm not I obviously have time pressures like we all do, but I can approach things much more calmly, which I think is much more effective. So rather than that kind of bull in a china shop approach of like, right, let's get things done, because I'm much calmer, I can assess situations better.
And so do you do it at like regular stages? Do you do it like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or is it just kind of when you can fit it in?
Yeah, it's when I can fit it in. So with work, technically I'm office based, but I'm probably in the office 2 days a week. So I kind of fit it around kind of my diary and whereabouts I am. But I try and do it a later class as possible so that I can go straight to bed. And I sleep so well, and that's had a really positive impact as well because I'm much more alert at work. So yeah, that's £10 million well spent, I'd say.
Some yoga studio is going to do very well out of that media spend. Okay, so in terms of your career, what has been the best investment of your time, your energy, or your money?
I would say my best investment would be having a few sessions with a career coach. So my background has previously been media owner side, selling advertising, and at the time I loved the company I worked for, but I was really bored of going to media agencies, talking to like 23-year-old guys that didn't really give a shit, and it was just the same conversations all the time. So I went to a career coach who kind of got out of me what I wanted to get out of me. I think when you go to you have like careers classes at school, and it's like, do you want to be a teacher or a doctor? And it's like, the job I do now didn't even exist
do you know,
when I was at school.
Kind of side note, I did do stand-up comedy a few years ago, and I was fucking awful at it. But anyway, it was good fun. But the most regular joke that came back, like over the 2 or 3 years that I did it, was I asked my career coach, is a career coach a good job? That was it. I don't know why. Or a careers advisor. And it was just that one thing that kept on coming back. It's like, so if any people are doing stand-up comedy, don't do that joke.
How long after that did your comedy stand-up career die?
After I did that joke over and over again. So sorry. So one thing that like I have a career coach, but there's going to be some people listening to this who've probably know what it is, but how does it work? You just talk that through.
It's almost like, I've only been to one career coach, so I can't say how it necessarily works all the time, but for me it was almost like a therapy session where you get out of it what what you love about your job or what you're passionate about, maybe outside of specific your role. And then it's kind of like, well, where can those passions take you, or how can you? So at that time, I loved the company, but I just felt like there was no creativity in my job. It was just like I was selling the same stuff over and over. So we kind of carved out this opportunity for a role that was much more creative. And this career coach helped me almost build a pitch, which then I presented to my MD and my boss, and they made a role for me based on this pitch.
So how did that work? So you wrote the pitch down with?
Yeah, so it was like, okay, well, what are you most comfortable with? What are you good at? Where are your confidences, your strengths, your weaknesses? What can you work on? And then they helped me a few years ago now, so my memory isn't amazing, but then they helped me kind of formulate, right, if I wanted this job that we've kind of fictionally created, how would we sell that in? And obviously to any kind of boss, it's like, how can we make more money for the company? So that's how the spin we put on it. And it worked.
And do you still have a career coach?
No, but I maybe that's because I'm in a job at the moment where I'm feeling like I have that creativity, and that for me that's been really helpful. But I did a course about emotional intelligence a few months ago, and they asked you for your 5 values at work that are really important to you.
Do you know what yours were?
They were creativity, fun, variety, honesty, and ambiguity. And
ambiguity? Is it one of your favourite?
Yeah, so
being
able to make decisions and having that trust, someone having that kind of trust in you to just let you get on and crack on rather than being micromanaged and that kind of stuff. So that was really, and I was like, actually, they're probably my 5 values in life. And then when I looked at what I do now, I do have all of those. So perhaps that's why I'm kind of feeling okay without a career coach at the moment. But yeah, I definitely think that was such a good investment.
So I don't know if you answered this question already, but in the last 5 years, which new belief or behaviour has improved your work life?
I kind of touched on it just now, I guess, but is it a new belief or a behaviour, or more of a practice, I guess, is I've worked on my emotional intelligence, because I think at work you can be quite book smart, but with your emotional intelligence, it's how you manage kind of people and your reactions to people and their behaviours. And I think that's been really helpful for me in terms of, I think I'm quite a reactive person, so I kind of act first and then I think, whereas obviously in work situations that's not always ideal. So kind of through lots of reading, through courses, I think I'm much more of a calmer person at work. I will assess situations. I won't necessarily react straight away. If something's kind of stressing me out, my reaction would be to swear or kind of get really aggressive and shouty, which can then, you don't realise that the impact that has on people around you as well. If you're getting really agitated about something, then other people in your vicinity will feel kind of uptight because they kind of feel a little bit precious around you. So I think working on emotional intelligence, is that answering the question?
Yeah,
just gone off on a tangent. But a new behaviour that I've kind of taken up in the last 5 years, but it's probably only in the last 6 months, if I'm honest.
And how did you get to the point where you were doing a course on emotional intelligence? Was it through work?
Yeah, it's through work. And I just found that my reaction to a lot of stuff was quite extreme. If I was pissed off, I'd be really pissed off. If I was upset, I'd be really upset. And it's just that's not cool. And I think as I kind of progress up my career and, look to managing teams and things like that, I want to be a cool, chilled boss. I don't want to be someone that people are scared of, or, so, it was amazing. Absolutely. It was a 2-day course and now I read so many books about emotional intelligence, or when someone is behaving in a certain way at work, whether that's external or internal, I have to remember it's not always about me. I don't know what's going on in their lives or their situation. So rather than my reaction to if someone's being a bit of a dick is they're a dick, it's well, I don't know what's going on at home, or I don't know what else has happened to them today. It's don't be so judgmental. So is
there one tool or trick or tip you could give the audience of this podcast, i.e. me, if I wanted to improve my emotional intelligence at work? What's the kind of one hack that you can apply quite easily?
Well, I'm going to give you 3, only because you can't necessarily, depending on the situation, my biggest one that I was going to say was just go for a walk and walk away. So I've sometimes found there's been instances where like maybe a decision's been made that I've not been happy with, and I'm very fortunate that like I don't have to be chained to my desk, so I can be like, right, I'm going to go and make a cup of tea, or I'm going to go for a walk for 5 minutes. And when you take yourself out of that situation, all of a sudden you're like, does it really matter? Also ask yourself, is this going to matter in a year's time? Is it going to matter tomorrow? I think sometimes we can be really like reactive, and does it really matter, or is it just a bit of an inconvenience? And then if those kind of aren't options, this sounds really basic, but just count to 10, because just to stop yourself saying the first thing that comes to mind, sometimes that just saves you, and it stops you making a dick of yourself as well.
Right, brilliant. That is 3 top tips. I'll come back to those. That's like, I'm going to count.
Not a professional advice giver, but...
But you are. Okay, so what advice would you give to a smart, driven student who's trying to get into the marketing, advertising game?
It's not very PC, but fuck university. I think there is so much pressure on kids to go to university, but like, do you really need it? So like, I look back and I went to uni because I just wanted to move away from home. Like, I love my family, but I was just 18 and like, I want to be independent. And actually that I did my degree was in French. It had nothing to do with what I'm doing now. And I think I think there's so many other skills that are more important than just having a degree, which I know that when people now, employers are looking like they do, they're like, you've got to have a degree, but it's like, why? And I think there is so many more things that you can invest in. So whether that's courses or college courses or apprenticeships, I don't think university is necessarily always the answer to like get a good job at the end of it.
Certainly not in our industry. And I think that if you're in social or in digital, if like you can't demonstrate an interest in content or communication by just getting off your arse and doing a thing, a blog, an Instagram feed, an event, whatever. Like if you haven't done any of that, then I don't care if you got a degree.
Yeah, so I and it's really interesting. Like my school, the only option was like you go to university. But like I look back and I'm like, actually, there's so many other things I could have done that like I might be further along where I am now, or I might have even gone down a different career path, but I definitely didn't need to go to university.
So here's a weird question for you. I've been thinking about this a lot. Obviously, having a baby, you start thinking a lot about your own upbringing, and I was brought up in essentially rural Northumberland, and that was in the late 90s, really, when we were starting to think about the rest of our lives, and we were very much encouraged, nail the A levels, go to university.
Yeah.
And it was around like kind of 96 that like they were starting to talk about the internet, and no one went, look Tom, things are going to be very, very different in the next 10 years. And no one said, why don't you go and explore this world, the fact that the world's going to change. It was like, just go to university, get any degree. And I did philosophy, dropped out, whatever, but even if I'd got that degree, like I'd have just been in more debt and all the rest of it. So if you were going to speak to that same driven student, what subjects do you think they should be reading up on and thinking about that are going to be really impactful in 10 years' time, in 20 years' time?
Oh,
that's a left field question, and I do appreciate I've thrown it at you, because the reason I asked the question is because I've got nephews that have just started university.
Yeah. Oh, that's a toughie. I don't think this is the right answer, but it's an answer. When you're talking about new things to kind of look into, I think there's got to be something in the whole cryptocurrency thing, but that doesn't even answer your question. It just feels like that's something new that people should.
Well, it's like a completely new system of finance, right?
Yeah,
people
like
should
it feels
probably have
like that's
an understanding of these things.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not very good on the spot, am I?
No, but that's it. I just realised I'd asked you a total bitch of a question, but we'll come back to it. Maybe I've had too much wine. It wouldn't be the first time. Cool. All right. So, in the last 5 years, what have you become better at saying no to at work?
Thirsty Thursdays.
That wasn't a thing 5 years ago. Okay, fine.
It's always been a thing.
Right. And is there a drinking culture at Benefit? Is that?
Yeah, we're always encouraged to kind of enjoy ourselves. But I remember my days at Sky where like you'd always go out. Like there wasn't even an option of like making other plans.
On a Thursday particularly.
Yeah, and a Friday. But I guess I say no less. Mainly because I just want to be more productive. What a loser.
A friend of mine says that you should never waste a hangover on the weekend. You should always do it during the week.
Is that from me? That's very true. But I guess in more kind of a serious answer, I've been better at saying no to meetings. I hate a meeting for the sake of having a meeting. Or I also hate doing something over email that you could just pick up the phone and get the answer right away. And actually, interestingly, what I'm finding more with work now with suppliers, it's so much easier to just communicate. If it's a really quick question and answer, like a WhatsApp, which I guess some like working brand side, some people might feel uncomfortable with that. I've got a work phone, like someone's probably going to get a much quicker answer out of me from like WhatsApping me rather than like let's put in a meeting and let's schedule a call. It's like call me and I'll answer, if not I'll like respond when I can. But I guess there is a tendency to like, oh, you've got to go to a meeting because you've got to be seen as like really enthusiastic, but I think it's not a good use of your time.
So how do you get out of these meetings? Are you like just replying going no? Or do you why?
When it's external meetings, if someone wants in, I'm just like, I'll be quite straightforward. Like I'm quite straight talking anyway. If I don't think it's going to be a good use of my time, I'm not afraid to say it. I'll always be polite, but I don't want to waste someone else's time, especially if someone's trying to sell me something and I know that I'm never going to.
Yeah, but saying no at sales meetings is a piece of piss, right? But it's when someone internally is talking about.
Yeah, but then equally, I think I get recommended internally to like, speak to Lauren, she's your girl, and I'm like, yeah, I might be, but I'm still not going to talk to you. But yeah, internally as well, it's like, does this need to be a meeting? If it does it need to be 2 hours? Can we do it in half an hour? Like, what do we actually need to talk about? I just think sometimes I think meetings are kind of put in to make people feel like they're doing something, but and almost like show that they've got something to talk about. But I think if it's not an effective use of time.
So I've got. Right. Can I try another new question out on you?
Oh, okay. Well, only if I can give it a good answer. Let's give it a go.
Well, you know what this question is. So I've never asked this on the podcast before, but who should I interview for this podcast next?
What's her name? Right, There's a woman who I did a course. She runs a company called Now Go Create. She's called Claire. Let me tell you her name. Am I gonna find her?
Just take the time. It's fine. Like someone's on their commute, trying to learn some marketing stuff.
Oh, what's her surname? Oh,
it's
that's
fine.
Annoying.
We do it,
but
and she's called Claire from Now Go. And what do those guys do?
So I did one of her workshops, and it's all about how to be more creative in the workplace. And one of the things I still remember to this day is like different brainstorming techniques. That's so annoying, I can't remember her name. I've got one of her books at home, she's brilliant.
It's fine. Well, we can do this off air.
She's on my LinkedIn. She's just really interesting. She is
It's fine. We'll get to it. Yeah. Okay, cool. So your shiny new object. And probably how we met really is through influencer stuff.
Yes.
Right, so I don't know very much about influencer marketing despite having sort of worked around it for a while. Mm-hmm. And I've got a bit of a beef with it, and you don't have to defend influencer marketing. I'm just for the...
I probably won't defend it.
Just for the context. Yeah. I understand the importance of influencers. Mm-hmm. I understand that these influencers have a massive reach, and like PewDiePie is like 5 times bigger than Coke, and I could obviously reel off a list of influencers, but it's just a kind of story for me at my days at We Are Social is that we were working with Domino's, and we came up with this. I didn't come up with it. A guy called Tom Bellamy came up with this games console made out of a pizza box that you could just plug into your telly. Like, you could order it, and it was called Pizza Pie, and it had a Raspberry Pi in it, and it was just like so unbelievably such a cool idea. But the decision was to make it an influencer thing, so they sent this console out to an influencer, and he did it so badly. And I don't know, like I couldn't watch the thing to the end. It was sort of
As in, he like reviewed it and it was just
I mean, I'm not the target audience, and like I would never watch his channel. But like, you know, we sent it up to him in like a Nike box, and he unboxed it in a Nike box. Do you know what I mean? And it was just like, and then
that whole unboxing thing.
And then he put like a Tesco pizza inside it, and it was just like, you know, what was a really brilliant idea was, for me, completely ruined by an influencer. But he did what was right for his audience, and I respect that. And kind of jump back one step, like I get how powerful it is, and I don't think it's going to get any less important. But I don't see any joy in it, for me personally, as a creative person, like convincing someone to say sort of the thing you want them to say. So what I would love to know from you is, like, for people like me who are listening to this podcast who don't necessarily do a lot of influencer stuff, like what's exciting about it? What's the best way to do it? And what is the future of it?
I think it's exciting when it's a bit of a wishy-washy answer, but I think it's exciting when it's done well. I think even I probably have a love-hate relationship with influencer marketing, because I'm so against these like campaigns that brands are like, we do influencer marketing. It's like, no, you don't. You copy and paste some like some kind of pre-written copy that you want every single influencer to put in their kind of feed, and it just sounds like a sales message, and that's not influencer marketing at all. I think it's just lazy marketing. So I get what you're saying in terms of it can kill creativity, but also I think as a kind of marketer, your job is to get the message of your brand out there, and influencers are amazing for that. In my experience, do they help sell loads of product? Maybe not so much, but are they great for awareness and making sure your brand is maybe front of mind? Definitely. Like, I really see that. And actually, interestingly, I did some Instagram story polls last night on my Instagram to kind of get feedback from people that don't necessarily work in the kind of field of advertising and marketing.
In preparation for this?
Yep, did some research.
Come on, talk. Right, okay. This is interesting.
Yeah, didn't read the brief you sent me, but I did do some Instagram stories. So let's see. So firstly, I kind of asked the obvious one, like, do people...
Can you play the audio? Have you got your video?
No, it was just a series of polls and selfies. So firstly, I kind of asked people if they knew what influencers were. So around about 450 people answered my kind of responses. So it's a sturdy number of people. It's not that bad.
Yes, statistically significant.
So 83% of people knew what influencers were. So pretty high. It's a bit of a rubbish start.
And who's your audience, would you say?
About 99% women.
Right. Okay.
Women in the UK, aged 25 to 45.
So benefits target audience. Essentially. Right.
So it's going to be slightly skewed. But yeah. Then I asked kind of people if they considered themselves to be an influencer. And only 6% of people said yes. But that's an interesting one.
6%?
Yeah, but I think technically...
That's massive.
Do you think?
Well, yeah, but like...
But then in what capacity? Because then I asked, why do you... those that said yes, why do you consider yourself? And a lot of the people came back saying, well, I consider myself an influencer because I know that I have the power to influence people in a positive way. So there's people that are like PTs, like I can influence them to like exercise more, or I can talk to my or there's people that like I talk to my friends about something I'm wearing, and they can go and buy it. Or so I think influencer, they're kind of technically, we can all influence, but the term, I think that's why I got a lot.
So people are seeing it as an influence as a value that you have as opposed to a job. Yeah,
I think so. Well, a bit of mix of both, but yeah, I think as a lot of brands see. So I'm going to have some water. Oh, bit of Dorito in my throat.
This is the advantage of recording a podcast at home. Lauren brings around fucking terrible wine.
I did bring around terrible wine, sorry.
And swipes all his Doritos.
But yeah, I think brands look at influencers being someone that's got a huge following, and a lot of brands are ignoring that. And not to big myself up in any way, but like I don't have a big following. But when I said to people like, what have you bought? They're like, some of it is like, I work for Benefit and I talk about Benefit products sometimes. They're like, oh, because I saw you talk about this. Oh, excuse me. I then asked people, are they put off by when they see that like someone on Instagram or YouTube has done like a sponsored post? And 57% of people said yes. But then when I asked people, what about when you see adverts in magazines? And only 37% were bothered by those. I'm like, it's the same thing, but I think when it's a person rather than a publication, when it becomes personal, that's when people get pissed off, because I think people are selling out.
So how do you think people can tell when it's sponsored?
So this is where, and I think this is where I mentioned earlier, I kind of got this love-hate thing, where as soon as you can tell that someone isn't, I hate the word authentic. I hate authenticity. It's just, it's naff. But when someone isn't...
Why do you think it's naff? Go on.
Because it's just such a buzz bullshit word. Like, just got to be authentic. It's like, what does that even mean?
What do you think people think it means?
Well, I think the best people that are absolutely nailing being an influencer and working with brands are when their sponsored content is in exactly the same tone as their organic content. When their organic content is more like they post more organic content than they do sponsored. It's like there's a lifestyle influencer that I kind of follow, and I looked, and of her last 9 posts, 8 of them are paid for by brands. It's like you're not even creating your own content, you're just an advert machine. So I find that quite frustrating. And I think, interestingly, I think the people that I see or I'm aware of that are really nailing it are the ones that are really transparent about the fact they're working with brands. Because I think as long as you see that they're doing it in the same style that they normally do, and it's a really good brand fit, then I don't think people are bothered.
So who do you think's doing this well?
So there is a lady called Davies who I think she's absolutely nailing it. So she's an ex-fashion editor, and her feed is very fashion focused and interior, actually a lot of home stuff. And her stories are fab. She does a lot of curation of kind of styles and trends, and she does a lot of work with all sorts of brands. But one that kind of stands out with me is she has an ongoing partnership with M&S, and from what I can kind of tell, I think they either give her a monthly allowance or something. There was maybe money, but maybe product, I'm not sure, exchange hands. And every month she kind of picks out clothes that she likes and she talks about them. But it's not a case of just like, here's me in a really cute outfit. She'll wear the outfit, but then she'll go, and this is how I'd style it. And she'll try it on with, she might wear a dress, but she'll put on a belt, or she'll then put a jumper over it to show you how it can be worn. And then she'll give you advice on like, well, if you're really petite or if you're tall, how should you wear it? And it's just so interesting how she does it, because a brand has asked her to kind of create this content, but because it's how she creates her organic content, it doesn't feel like you're being sold a product. I just think she's brilliant.
So, come back to my earlier point. So that sounds like an incredible skill to be given a narrower creative remit. Like, you have to talk about these things.
And I do think she's probably got the upper hand because she has got those kind of credentials, and as in like she's got a background in fashion. She's not just someone that just happens to have 100,000 followers and from kind of looking pretty and posting loads of selfies, which is that a talent?
So what I'm struggling with here is, so you're M&S and you employed this lady to make this content, and she's really brilliant. So essentially you're going, well, look, we'll give you X amount of cash or X amount of product. Can you just do your stuff? And then she just does it. But so what is the role of the brand there, really? And what is the role of an agency? Can an agency be good at influencer content, or can they just manage influencers, or even the networks? Like, what, other than putting a brand in touch with the talent and brokering the deal, where is the creativity?
But the creativity is with that influencer.
Yeah.
Because I think as a brand, like, if you have, as the brand, if you have all the creativity, then all your content is going to look exactly the same across every person's feed, and then it's not going to look authentic to theirs. So their followers are going to be like, well, that's clearly paid for. It's not written in your tone. So as a brand, why would you want that creativity?
So what is your skill as someone who's responsible for influencers at Benefit?
Finding the right people that are a good brand fit, finding the people that are kind of have amazing content, they can write, they can really kind of get passionate about a product as well. Like I would try and avoid as much as possible working with anyone that's like that has a lot of these, like everything they do is sponsored. Anyone that's just flogging a load of shit and like, you know, booty and all that crap that just gives you the shits, like it's not really like, I think that's when you can tell that people are just working with brands to make money.
And do you have any more questions left up from your audience?
Yes, let me see.
This is like the most creative prep anyone's done for the podcast, so thank you.
So then I asked about, so there's a big thing at the moment around, obviously, so I've done a lot of training around like ASA guidelines in terms of declaration of kind of sponsored content, because actually it's the brand that gets it if it's not declared.
So you know a lot about this, a lot of people who listen to this won't, so can you just give us a little
so
overview of that?
The ASA have rulings that if a brand is kind of has paid for content on someone's social feeds or wherever, it has to be declared as either, so it's #ad, not #SP. That's not the correct use of kind of declaring sponsorship, or if they've got over, I can't remember how many followers, where they can use the paid partnership tool on Instagram. So it should always be declared where money has exchanged hands.
And it has to be declared within the written copy, or can it be within the like audio?
So it could, it could be so in YouTube, for example, it could be in the title of the video. It could be when they're talking about a product, the kind of flash of like ad can come up.
So how are the ASA policing that? Have they got an intern who like just
No, it's a case of when things are reported, they look into it. It's very early days. They're kind of pretty slow on it at the moment, and at the moment all they're really doing is kind of slapping people's hands. But the bigger it comes, the more they're going to look for companies to use as examples. So it's my responsibility as someone that manages like the commercial contracts to be like really push that. Because I don't want to get into I don't want the hassle of that.
So what's your question?
So then at the moment, going back to this, so there's a big discussion at the moment of when influencers are sent product for free, they're not paid to post about it. You know, they just sent it, and if they happen to post, great. Old school PR essentially. And people should be like, they should be declaring when that's gifted, because that's skewing their opinion of a product. They haven't just gone and bought it. So I asked people about whether they should declare whether people should declare when they receive products for free. 93% said they should, which is interesting because they don't have to at the moment. And one thing I do think that will definitely, if they do have to start declaring that, I think that's going to change the market quite a lot.
Why?
Because most influencers, I think, only post about brands because they've been sent it. I think there are very few influencers that actually go and buy anything. Like I just can't remember the last time I saw someone that I followed that does this as a career, like go, I actually bought this because I saw it, like, which is pretty sad. Then I asked the same question about journalists, because this is my biggest bugbear about people like influencer marketing is like awful, and it's just people receiving free gifts. It's like that is how editorial works in the press. Like, do you think a kind of beauty director at a magazine has gone and bought that product? No, they haven't. They've been sent it from the company the same way those influencers have. But because their salary is paid for by a publication, people don't kind of vilify them. So I thought that was quite interesting. Then I asked people if they've ever purchased something because a person they follow on social media has posted about it. 89% of people said yes. That's out of 500 people that voted. It's pretty high, isn't it?
So so you changed that from influencer to someone in social, or do you think that encompasses the same thing?
Very good point. Well, no. I think I wanted to say everyone because I think you don't necessarily have to be a full-time influencer to be influential. And then I said, right, okay, talk to me. What were those products?
Brave.
Yeah, so there was a lot of makeup, clothes, a lot of house cleaning, like cleaning things. Weird, huh?
Influencers who've talked about house
Cleaning
cleaning
products.
stuff. Really?
Yeah, it's do you know what? A lot of people make videos about how to like clean your home really quickly in the most efficient way. It's a thing.
And they influence people.
It's not something I would watch.
I just like
horses for courses is a bit for everyone.
So that for me is like I understand that that's a necessary or a believable part of the internet, right? I totally get it. The people are into that shit, and I'm not. But how as like a creative person can I get into that? That like my friend is an influencer, and she got sent. It wasn't M&S, it was something like M&S. And like here are the brand's top 25 sellers. Can you do some content around it? And one of them was a bottle of Domestos. And so she had to kind of work in a bottle of Domestos into this thing. And I'm like, what is going on?
Do you know, there's a woman I follow on Instagram who I've met a few times actually. She's called Sarah Aquazombie. Like, I think she's absolutely amazing. She's so creative. So she's an interior stylist, but she also runs something called the Noble Blog School. And it's all around kind of how to kind of get into this industry but like not be full of bullshit. And what
were her suggestions?
So she actually this was maybe about a year ago, she came on Instagram. She was talking about how like she set herself the task of taking the most, like she gets offered loads of like brand collaborations, and then a lot of them are crap, and she's like, I've taken it on myself to accept everything and make what I do so creative and put like my spin on it. So she was taking, I can't even remember what she was doing, but she was taking something that must be really mundane and not necessarily fit into what she normally does, but she put her spin on it in a way that like it totally worked. And because she was really open about the fact that she's like, well, I wouldn't normally use this, but let's give it a go, it kind of worked.
Right, but that's interesting. She had a creative idea.
And that's it. It was her creativity that totally made it, really interesting. Lots of makeup, Hoovers. That came up a couple of times actually, and I think a lot of this is.
So once again, I could show my ignorance around influencers. So are these people who follow someone who talks about Hoovers, or are they going to Google and searching for like Hoover recommendations, content, whatever, and then finding an influencer? Because I think
I was specifically asking people about people they follow on Instagram and YouTube.
Right.
Rather than you're right, a Google search and then they just happen to come up.
I'm confused about this. Who do they follow that reviews Hoovers?
I follow someone that does a lot of cleaning.
Who do you follow?
I don't follow because she does cleaning.
Who's this cleaning influencer that you follow? And what is she? Why?
I follow her because I know her through work, and she's lovely. But she posts about how she cleans her house quite a lot. But her house looks spotless. So
well, I should fucking hope so.
I'm adding Zaflora to my weekly shopping list. Then I asked what makes someone a good influencer. And that A word came out, authenticity. Someone that shows their real life just as much as their kind of highlights. Someone that collaborates with brands that actually feel like they fit rather than just taking the money. Integrity, responsibility, honesty and relevancy. Someone that...
You sound like your work values from your emotional intelligence course.
A lot of people that just kind of like... they're really someone that's really transparent about ads. Transparency came up a lot. They're like, I don't mind being advertised to, but I want to know that I'm being advertised to. Just honesty a lot. But I think you don't really get that. I don't think you see honest influencer marketing.
So picking up on something you scowled at me before when I mentioned it, and I said that, can an agency be good at influencer content? And you went,
why did
you say that or not say that?
No, so I'm obviously coming at it from my perspective, which is brand. I work for a brand and we do it in-house. And when we have met with people that either manage a lot of influencers from that perspective or from that creative side, I feel like a lot of the ideas that come out are just like it's one answer for all influencers, and I don't think that's right.
What do you mean?
Like they're like, here's an idea, let's do it across all those influencers, but it's like every influencer is different. You do have to tailor stuff. So
right, so they come up with a creative idea, and then they go, right, cool. Well, let's get some influencers on board with
yeah. And I think if you're an influencer with integrity, you're not going to work on those campaigns. You're not just going to take one idea and be okay with that using like everyone doing the same thing.
Which is where my Domino's idea went wrong. Damn it. So I've seen a lot of stuff in the press recently about AI influencers or artificial influencers or virtual influencers and there's the girl, the brunette, kind of Asian looking. Sorry, I don't know her name. She refused to answer my questions for this podcast. I would get her on. That'd be cool,
do you know the weirdest thing with that? Could people not tell that she wasn't real? Because when you look at the image, it looks like an amazing cartoon, don't you think?
I think so, but I think I'm sensitive to that. But there's I heard about I can't remember the name of the trends, but basically people are using various different technologies, probably AI, to create influencers that are amassing these huge followings, and now brands are paying those artificial influencers to say whatever they want them to say, and in I can't remember the market and I can't remember the name of the artist. Somewhere out east, it's close I remember. But there's a music artist who's a young girl basically that you can write songs for her, and she will perform them. So she's released like 200,000 songs and counting.
So she's AI. She's
like a.
What do you think? What's the point?
Because the and then she does gigs, and there's like a big like holographic projection of her.
So is the idea that like if you're a songwriter, you could get your song heard?
Yeah, like if I write a song for her, she will instantly create a recording of it and then release that. And if people share and are into that, so the lines between
that's quite a good use of it though, right?
Yeah, so the lines between audience and artist are blurred and kind of change, and there's this girl who's the AI influencer person. Like, so how would that affect benefit? Would you consider working with that girl if she was up for it, or line of code?
No.
Or like...
No, because but personally I just think like that's, if I'm right, so obviously I work for benefit. If I was going to buy makeup, would I want to see it on a real person? Or it's like saying if I'm going to buy a dress, would I want to see it on a mannequin or would I want to see it on a real person?
You buy it from a mannequin then?
No.
You've never bought a dress you haven't...
You'd have to try it on. And you'd have to see what it fits like on a human rather than a perfect like hard...
But if that influencer, that AI influencer, had a massive following and that following was your target audience, the brand wouldn't go near it.
So for us, I mean, the way I look at it... So we don't necessarily work with the people that have got the biggest following. One, because I think there are so many people now that have big followings. So, for example, we were approached to work with a 14-year-old girl that has a huge following, and we turned it down because morally I felt like that was wrong. I don't want to be advertising makeup to or having a 14-year-old as the face of benefit. It just felt wrong.
Why does it feel wrong?
I just feel like 14 is still really young. And don't get me wrong, I know that at that age girls are wearing makeup, but I just think like if a 14-year-old, her following is probably going to be like 9 or 10-year-olds, and it just felt like that just feels like we're advertising to kids. And I think as a makeup brand, and there's so much in the media about women feeling pressure to look a certain way, I don't think you should be getting those kind of messages at like 9 or 10 years old.
And how was that?
Feels wrong.
How was that view reacted to within the business? Yeah,
so when I first raised it, it was a bit like, but they've got that many followers. And then actually I was like, well, let's put a meeting in and let's discuss if we feel, let's put a meeting in, but like, let's discuss this. And actually we went back and forth and we were like, as a brand, like, it may be detrimental to us short term to not have this kind of spike in kind of coverage, but long term, I think, it would harm our reputation if we're then seen as a brand that like targets kids. So it's not always about kind of the short-term win.
So then that's interesting in the artificial influencer space, isn't it? Because, how old is that person? Probably a bloke or a team of guys or whatever.
I just find that so bizarre. I just find it more bizarre that people think it's a real person.
Well, they do and they don't, and, does it matter? Like...
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so if I was... Sorry, if someone who's listening to this podcast who never worked with influencers before, and they're like, right, okay, I want to do influencers, or my boss wants to do influencers, or whatever, what would you say is the one thing to definitely do and the one thing to definitely not do?
Firstly, ask yourself why. Because I think there's a trend for brands to be like, because it's the big thing, it's like, we want to work with influencers, but it's like, okay, why? What are you going to get out of it? What can you do from it? Rather than just tick a box to be like, oh, we've done something with influencers. Then, do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
Be really, when you're first starting out working with influencers, be picky about who you work with. Like, don't, I think you kind of will then, as a brand, get a reputation of like, if you work with like it's going to sound awful, but like if you kind of work with shit influencers, you're never going to get the good ones, because you'll kind of have that reputation of just like not being fussy or not really knowing what you're doing.
So within the influencer community,
they all talk.
So if you work with some rubbish influencer,
they'll know about it. It's like, why are they working with them? And it's like, well, is that because they're going down this route and I don't want to be associated with that? Like, if we as a brand start doing something that, I don't know, say we started working with someone that was like really offensive to a certain community or something, or I don't know, like was really homophobic, then that's gonna be found out. So just do your homework and work with the right people.
Right.
It's a terrible example there.
No, it's good. So look, we need to wrap this up now. If I'm just getting so dark in here, I can't read my notes. So I'm just going to kind of go over the things that we talked about. So the book that you recommended was Shoe Dog by
Phil Knight
at Nike. And the best thing that you ever spent money on was a pair of red tights, because you got a job out of it. And if you could spend 10 million quid, you tell people to do yin yoga. We talked about the benefits of having a career coach, and the fact that you'd done an emotional intelligence course, and both of those things are close to my heart. And I think that is a really powerful thing that you've spoken about, that you are aware of your shortcomings and the gaps in your skills, and you've deliberately gone out to answer those. And I'm certainly guilty of just kind of assuming that problems will go away over time, but you just kind of take them head on, and that is really admirable. And I love your tips for emotional intelligence is, put yourself in the other person's shoes, but just physically walk away. And ask this question I really like, is that, will it matter in a year? And also count to 10. On my screensaver now, I've actually changed it to ask myself the question, will it help? Which is my kind of version of that. Like, before you do anything, is this thing I'm about to do going to help?
Is this going to have a positive effect?
Or not, and then, quote of the week, fuck university, which is brilliant. You talked, I need to get introduced to Claire from Now Go Create. And we talked about influencer marketing, and I'm sorry to be super negative about it, but it was interesting. You taught me a lot, and you did a poll on Instagram. Like, you were influential within your own world, and it was so interesting to hear some of those things. Like 57% of people being put off by sponsored posts, and I think that was really useful to hear, alongside the fact that a really great influencer will make an advert not feel like an ad, and that is really the artistry and the skill of a brand, is to be able to find the right influencers that you can trust to talk in a way that it doesn't feel like that they're selling themselves short, because the audience is going to like pick up on it immediately. then we talked about AI influencers and is that actually a thing? And it's so interesting to hear the fact you say, look, I definitely wouldn't work with an artificial generated influencer in the same way I wouldn't work with a real 14-year-old, because there's an ethics involved in influencer marketing, which are your ethics, and it's great you're standing by those, but also the fact that as a brand that needs authenticity, you can't hand that over to a robot for this period in time. So if anyone wanted to get in touch with you to discuss any of this stuff, how would you like to do this?
So I'm on LinkedIn, Lauren Spearman. But do you know what? I get messages and I never reply. So find me on Instagram. I'm also at Lauren Spearman. Slide into those DMs.
Julie yesterday gave out her email address, which I thought,
that's not going to happen.
I have your address. No, let's not do that. Right.
Phone number is.
Lauren, thank you so much. You taught me a lot about influencers that I didn't know, so thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming over. Less so for the world's worst bottle of wine that you shut up with. You're lucky if you get invited again. Thank you so much.
Thanks.